Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs Podcast, where innovation meets sustainability. Building a better tomorrow, today. We interview changemakers and visionary leaders redefining success for the planet. Here you'll find inspiring stories and solutions that matter. Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs.
Today's guest is Gat Caperton, CEO of Gat Creek, West Virginia-based company that handcrafts sustainable solid wood furniture. Gat Creek specializes in making timeless, made-to-order furniture from Appalachian hardwoods, with each piece signed by the artisan who crafted it. Gat's commitment to American manufacturing, sustainability, and community impact is reflected both in his business practices and the products his company creates. Today we'll explore his journey, how Gat Creek has grown through challenges, his vision for the future of U.S. furniture industry. So welcome, Gat.
Great to be here. Nice to have a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, excited. That's cool to hear that you're doing working with Appalachian hardwoods. We'll maybe have to find some crossover there. But if you can, I'd love to kind of start off with an overview. Gat Creek has a long-standing tradition of high-quality furniture making. Could you tell us more about how the company started and how it has evolved since you took over in the 90s?
Sure. So this company was born really in the 1950s. The original founder was a guy named Tom Seeley. He fought in World War II with the Flying Tigers, part of the American Advance Group that was down in Burma. After they came back to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, came back to Baltimore, West Virginia, ultimately made his way out to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and started what would be a classic 1950s business after, obviously 5-6 years of our country only making tanks, airplanes, and other varieties of things to wage World War II. There was a shortage of furniture and just about everything in this country, and he was a guy that would run around in the countryside, buy people's old furniture, fix it up, drive it back into the city, and sell it. It was a great country city arbitrage. He became a guy who had a nice little following that knew country antiques. Over time, as he moved to the 60s and 70s, he got to the point where he could sell far more furniture he could ever buy at various estate sales. And he just started making copies of his favorite pieces. And that's how this company was born. In 1996, I bought it from Tom Seeley. He was the founder. I'm now the second owner of the business. And we had a kind of a transaction that would have been much like a father-grandson type transaction. We weren't related. I actually I'm from West Virginia, but moved back to my home state. When I bought the business from him in 96, I did like a leverage buyout, an LBO, which they call in the days. I got married. I moved, went in debt. I got a new job, new house, like 4 of the top stress things you could do in 1 year. And, 28 years later, still married, still in debt, so success. Got 3 daughters to boot. And today we build furniture, solid wood furniture kind of, we do modern contemporary designs and stuff like that. But we still build it in the way that you would have years ago. We still have kind of a craftsman mentality, and we've built a lot of this business when built on the idea of being sustainable. When we started doing our work, the term sustainability was rarely used, but it's become a more and more important part of what we've done over the last 28 years, and it's fundamental to who we are. And so it's been fun. It's been a good role. Glad to still be at it.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of breadth of history there, and excited to hear more about the sustainability with your focus on sustainability and community. How do these values influence your daily operations as well as the long-term vision for the company?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Charleston, Washington, about 4 hours from Berkeley Springs. Our backyard, we were in a little holler, and we call them hollers in those days. Just on the edge of Charleston, my brother and I would play in the woods every day and every night. The greatest playground in the woods is the greatest playground in the world is the woods. Our mom actually had an air horn put in the side of the house. They had it hooked up the electric thing. You'd hit a light switch, and then about 3 seconds later, it made an incredibly loud noise. When we heard that noise, we had to find our way home so we could eat dinner. So I always grew up around the trees, and that eventually I became a manufacturing guy. Bought a furniture factory that did solid wood furniture, and after about a year of it, I had the Dr. Zeus dream with the they cut down all the trees. I'll think of it in a second. I totally blank on the name of the book. It's a great Dr. Zeus book. And I was like, what's that?
Lorax.
The Lorax, the tale of the Lorax. And I was like, I woke up in the middle of the night, like, God, I'm the guy cutting down all the trees. These are the trees I grew up on, I played in, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to be that guy. And that was the beginning of my my kind of journey trying to really pay attention to what we did and the sustainability of how we wanted to do stuff. And that was 20 plus years ago. I found a friend of a friend who worked with the Nature Conservancy, who was running the Nature Conservancy in West Virginia, and began my education about what trees and sustainability was and this and that. And luckily, it's a really good story. It didn't take a whole lot of changing around. What we were doing was really dialed in the right way. Over the last 25 years, it's a continuous improvement program. We continue to do better and better. We've got a really great track record here, and the Appalachian Forest has a wonderful track record. And we're fortunate to be sourcing out of that. There really isn't a forest that has a better track record than the Appalachian Forest. The boreal forest up in Canada is a close second, maybe. But outside of that, the Appalachian Forest is, growing. There's more trees every day than there was the day before. Tree mass, it's maintaining biodiversity. And in fact, trees are growing in Appalachia 2.4 times faster than they're dying or being taken out by harvest. It's a really wonderful, sustainable story. And we're geographically in the near center of the Appalachian Forest. So we are literally working with the woods from our backyards and turning them into furniture that lasts for years. So it's been fun. So that was being in my journey. And then I bought the business in 96. In 2001, the U.S., joined the World Trade Organization. And like all manufacturing, it all went to China. And the idea that, a cheap price would justify just about anything was really bothersome to me, not just because I had a factory in the United States that did things right. It just wasn't right. And so I started working and helped found what was ultimately the Sustainable Furnishings Council that worked within the furniture industry to start talking about sustainability. That was 17 years ago. People didn't know what sustainability meant when we talked about that industry in those days. And we began talking about it verbally, not just doing it, but really trying to promote it throughout our own industry. Basically, today, when I bought the business, 10% of the product, when we go backwards, 90% of the product in 1996 of wood furniture that was consumed in America was made in America. In 15 years of flip-flop, it went from 90% to 10%. Most of that going to Asia, most of that going to China. An incredible flip-flop. Luckily today, people care about how things are made, where they come from. And we've at least stopped the pendulum from moving. And we're going to work like crazy to get it to 15% one day. And that's the history of sustainability and our long-term vision. Yeah, we'd love to do more and more stuff domestically, locally, and we get better every year. That's to me sustainability.
Nice. I love the Dr. Seuss plug. That's something just appreciate hearing about that. And the sustainability and working in the United States, but also in your close vicinity, your proximity geographically. Playing off of what you mentioned about China and the sustainability, you've mentioned that surviving China's illegal dumping of wooden furniture into the U.S. market was a significant challenge. Could you share more about how Gat Creek overcame this and what it taught you about competing in the global market?
Yeah, so the industry became globalized in the late 1990s and ultimately in the 2000s. And in the early 2000s, China literally was illegally trading. They were illegally subsidizing the export of wooden bedroom furniture. They were doing it for a lot of furniture. But I ultimately, with a group of people, I didn't lead. I was a ladder joiner. I'm kind of the small guy in the bunch. But we ultimately went and had to sue the Chinese government in front of the ITC, National Trade Commission, with the Commerce Commission for illegal dumping, which literally ended up being almost a 10-year odyssey that ultimately put tariffs on some of this Chinese furniture, and eventually it ended a little bit of the illegal dumping that was going on. And we barely survived. We had 3+ years where we barely survived. It took us 100 days to pay our vendors. We'd gone out. If our bank had given up with us, or any of my lumber suppliers would have given up on us, we've been out of business. But they stuck with us for 3+ years. We kind of worked through and fought through, and eventually got to where it's a little more of a level playing field. We've reinforced the niche, and over time, the market came back a little bit. People, started caring a little more than they used to, which has been a real nice thing. It doesn't win any battles for you, but it's a great tiebreaker.
Well, I appreciate you staying in, and I think the more that we can kind of create a rising tide of more businesses, locally producing, sustainably producing, we'll continue the upward spiral of encouraging others to follow suit and continue to educate consumers about the options that are out there and the differences between something locally handcrafted versus foreignly mass manufactured. So glad you were able to hold strong.
Yeah, it's the truth, and it makes a big difference. A lesser known fact, this this, I've known this for a long time, but it came out publicly the other day when they were doing the dock worker strikes with all the containers coming over. Nearly 60% of the containers coming over from Asia or being landed in the United States have home furnishings in it. Isn't that amazing? Well over half have are filled with home furnishings.
Yeah, those. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I've seen videos of those. It looks like entire cities on those ships are coming over. So I can only just.
Yeah, the ships are amazing, and it's a change the world. The container shipping, half you pick one of those containers, and you got a better 50% chance if you pick a container with furnishings in it.
Definitely.
A lot of containers and a lot of petrol and a lot of boats moving around. It's amazing.
Yeah, not a level playing field like you mentioned. Trying to get it to that.
No,
Uh,
no, it still isn't, but it's better.
yeah. Well, so hopefully the step by step you keep on, and more people hopefully join in that local manufacturing, as long as that's the better of the options sustainably and economically, everything. But to comment or to check your recent factory expansion, doubled your production capacity. What has this meant for Gat Creek, and how has it impacted your ability to grow the business and support your community?
Yeah, as terrible as the COVID pandemic was, it proved to be very advantageous for a couple businesses, one of which was home furnishings, because there really wasn't, you could have picked a better thing in terms of selling furniture than locking everybody up at home for 2 years and then give them a little bit of money. They tend to spend that on home furnishings. That you tend to spend the money doing what you're doing and where you are. So that really proved to be a great advantage. We were a business that was growing before the pandemic. And then, like everybody, we shut down for a month and a half. And then for 2.5 years, when people were buying furniture faster we could make it. We knew that was a temporary thing that was really accelerated growth, some stuff pulling through things that doesn't last. But we ran out of capacity, and we came to the point where, either you decide you're going to be the same size forever, or you grow. And we knew we had to grow. It gives more opportunities for people to work here. The customers are looking for more stuff. We got to be prepared to do it. So we've long grown, but we're now more ambitious towards growing than we've ever been, and that's kind of fun. It's fun to take on that kind of stuff. And we go down to the big furniture market here in relatively few days. Hopefully, we get everything dusted off and shined up as nice as we can. We'll see if we sell a few more pieces of furniture. It's a great honor to be able to share your craft with people, and we try to do more and more of that where we can.
Yeah, that's lovely. I'm glad to hear the silver lining through that kind of what could be perceived as difficult circumstances. There's a lot of times that it balances back out, and other, sometimes it's a prosperous time for others. And glad you could be on that prosperous side.
Yeah, those are tough times, but it was not easy to change everybody's business to a certain degree. And it was hard for a lot of people to get sick. You just didn't know what you get on yourself. But it sold furniture.
Mm-hmm. Well, almost all the more reason to have seen some jokes about it, which not necessarily something to joke about, but the importing from China, and then the geographical path of the virus coming from China. And apparently even The Simpsons had an episode of the imported goods from China, one of the workers coughing into the box and closing it up, and that was how a virus had spread on one of their episodes. So I don't know about all the reality of that, but more reason to support local economy, if nothing else.
I was in college when The Simpsons came out. I loved The Simpsons from day one. I used to literally, before you had DVRs, you had to literally show up and watch TV at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night to watch a 2-minute Simpsons special. I watched it from the beginning. That's the kind of humor I just love. I had never seen that episode, but that exactly is the hysterical. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. If I can find the clip, I'll send it to you after. Well, to check in some of the challenges and obstacles you've encountered, I'm curious. Growing sales and workforce has been one of your key challenges. How are you addressing these issues, particularly in today's competitive marketplace?
Yeah, one of the challenges of COVID too, it changed the workforce to a certain degree. A lot of people retire, and when someone's got a good experience and they retire, it's not easy to backfill that. The other thing that happened to us just workforce-wise was it's true for everybody. It was hard to work. You had to wear a mask, you had to show up. You would eat lunch by yourself. The work became a pretty lonely experience. especially in the factory type work where you're working around other folks. So we went from having very low turnover to having high turnover, and having people that were vastly experienced to having more and more folks that were really learning their job for the first time. And it becomes somewhat overwhelming to how do you train, more people used to training and bring it up to speed. So there's been a lot of companies that have, really struggled with that. Boeing being the most notable one, freaking doors start falling off airplanes because they, lost some of their best folks and were unable to train enough folks to backfill for who they lost. We have not lost any doors to our knowledge, but we've certainly struggled with the same type of stuff. And we still work on it. We try and have long tried to be an employer of choice in our facility. We really want to be the best employer in our community, and it's always been a competitive market for a workforce here. And we now it's got to be better and better. We have to spend time not just making a great place to work, but really recruiting and trying to find really good and interesting and committed people to the craft of manufacturing furniture. And we're having, it's not coming back as fast as I want, but we continue to have better and better success. And so that's how we're growing it. And, people build furniture. If you're going to build more furniture, although we've got some really cool automation, you need more people. So that's a lot of our time and thought. Nothing easy about selling stuff. You got to work every day to sell stuff, especially furniture. So we're working doubly hard at that as well.
Well, hats off to you, if you will, on all the proceeding endeavors you're going into.
During the pandemic, fish jumped in the boat. They quit jumping in the boat after the pandemic. So we go out and put as many lines out as we can.
Yeah, what you got to do. And in an industry where mass production is the norm, how do you maintain the balance between handcrafted quality and the need for scaling up?
That's really a little bit of the secret sauce and the story. And this is, I'm going to sound like the manufacturing geek that I am when I say this, but it's about understanding automation. And the simple way to say it is it's very easy to automate stuff. You have a uniform input, a sheet of metal, plate of glass. You can cut, bend, and do it all very effectively, very cost effectively with machinery. When you have variability as an input, it becomes very hard. And though we're getting better and better at an almost exponential rate, it's still very hard to deal with randomness with automation, not unlike trying to have a car drive itself. All kinds of random stuff can happen. Sanding a piece of furniture, surprisingly hard for a robot to do. So you have to understand where people are excellent and where machines are excellent, and deploy the right kind of resources in the right kind of places. So where you see some of the machining where we're cutting things to size and do stuff like that, we have really cool automation these days, CNC automation that does it very, very well. When it comes to actually assembling a piece of furniture or staining it, where you put various colors on, every board's a little bit different. But people do that with their hands. I mean, every piece gets touched, every inch gets touched. And so you try to automate what makes sense to automate. You eliminate as much waste as you can, and you give people the time to do the hands-on work with variability, the time to do their job successfully. And you make sure you thank them for doing a good job every time they do so. So that's how it's a tough balance. It's not a tough balance. It's an important balance. Easily lost.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been interesting. Not necessarily am I involved in that kind of manufacturing, but to, as an outside observer, see some of the bigger trends of how technology automation came for a lot of the more what was thought to be maybe the safer kind of white collar thought processing, some of these kind of automations that you're maybe dealing with in design or things like that. And then a lot of the manual labor, like you said, like the putting on the stain has actually been the more challenging aspects to tackle on. And kind of moving into a future vision, you've recently expanded your factory, aiming to double size of the business. What are your next steps for achieving that growth, and how do you see Gat Creek continuing to impact both the furniture industry and the local community?
As a manufacturer, our game is continuous improvement. It's to continue to find ways to do, the same with less or do more with the same. And that's fundamental towards the sustainability, and that applies to just so much what we go out and try to do. So that's really the goal. I mean, we'd love to think that we're good at what we do, but when we do so, we really know we can continue to be better. So we're on that kind of treadmill of an operation, which is kind of awesome. We love the challenge. There's a lot of creativity to figure out how to do things better one year over the next, and we try to apply our creativity to exactly that. I don't know if I figure out how to fill this factory up with twice the amount of business, what I'll do next. The last time I did expansion, I swore I'd never do a second one. I've done a second one, so I can't. At least I learned that lesson. I'm not going to tell anyone there's no way I'll expand again. So we'll just wait till we get there till I decide the next gig, and it's going to take a few years. I got time.
Well, in that same vein, curious looking at if there are any like what innovations or new strategies are you most excited about in the realm of sustainable furniture production?
Well, the CNC machine technology, which we're well involved in, which is computer pneumatically controlled machinery, it's really makes a difference. It's one of the reasons that we have somewhat of a manufacturing renaissance in this country, and we're regrowing stuff. So that's pretty powerful. More importantly for our business, and I apologize for how technical it is, how you finish a piece of wood is becoming more and more important because, really some of the high-end woodworking has relatively soft, old school finishing to it. And so we're working with a lot of new technologies here that make a much harder finish, clearer finish, a more durable finish, which in terms of sustainability means, you have a piece of furniture that lasts, 50 years, 100 years. It's going to last twice as long now. It's beautiful substrate and it's got a material that protects, what makes that wood so great and good. And it really makes a pretty piece of furniture too, which is kind of fun. We're most of our energy and a lot of our capital these days is moving towards the finishing side of it. The woodworking side over the last decade and a half has had great progress by way of just CNC technology, machining technology. And we continue to apply that with the trying to what are people doing best and what are machines doing best in our operation. So those are really exciting things. Machinery that's kind of old but still good. I'm also doing some work with a separate company that we've helped found that we're doing some additive manufacturing. There's been very little additive manufacturing in furniture these days, which is basically like digital printing. And we're in a separate business doing a little work on that, which is kind of fun. And that's a separate story. There's surprisingly there's plenty of innovation to be had out there.
Yeah, but more and more to come. Well, very cool to hear about. Curious as Gat Creek continues to expand, are there specific areas where additional support, partnerships, or resources could help accelerate your growth?
Yeah, work with consumers, and how do you go from a factory to someone's house is not an easy and obvious path. If you have a direct-to-consumer kind of a business, that seems pretty easy, but it isn't. These are big, giant eggs that we work with, and people don't buy furniture all the time. So it's a very intimidating process for people, and furniture is expensive. So, the network that we work with, the partnerships that we have with retailers or designers or specifiers and kind of commercial applications are really critical. And, I hope to continue. We need to build more and more of those. Like any small business, just the access to capital is critical. We've had good success and have a really good bank, but, part of my job is just finding enough money to get all this resources together to do what we do. That continues to do so. It's fun to see in this country that this country isn't getting ready to invest in furniture like China did, but they are investing in manufacturing. Unlike, the years past, it happens to be, in chip manufacturing or stuff like that. But, even though that's not doesn't directly impact us, it's really good to see that capital is moving back into manufacturing in this country. It's important and critical. And again, though we're not getting a direct part of it, we do get some of it, I guess, indirectly. And some folks out there that support us, we find some support with both, interesting enough, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. USDA is a nice supporter for us. They help us with a lot of our electrical stuff. We're rural and how you get electricity in rural areas and how you use electricity efficiently. They've been a fantastic help. So we found some help there. I hope we'll see some more there. And then, we just appreciate people that, appreciate things are well and finely made. So love to find more of those.
Yeah, it is a journey trying to find the people who are interested in what you got, make that connection. It's something too. I'm curious what kind of collaborations or partnerships do you see as key to your company's future success, both in terms of business growth and sustainability efforts? You already mentioned the USDA, but just curious what other ones.
No, I before a little bit talked about the Ford side of the business. I'll go back and talk a little bit about my supplier and supply source and supply chain. What's very interesting these days is that the Appalachian forest and the hardwood industry, in terms of sustainability, has been wildly successful, and we're almost to the point that we need to figure out how to make our forest more and more working forest. Trees are growing mighty fast. We've really got a forest that is danger of overgrowing in some places in this area. Interesting, peak timber was 1999. The hardwood timber industry, based in the Appalachian forest, harvested 12 billion board feet of timber. This year they'll do 5. It's a fraction of the harvest that used to be. And again, it's growing 2.4 times faster, and the new is growing 2.4 times faster than the old is dying or being harvested. That's a lot of trees, and a lot of tree mass. So you worry about that supply chain. It's a very hard business being a timber business these days. And what they're doing is fundamentally in 100-year proven sustainability, especially in Appalachia. People get a bad rap for like, oh, we're losing too many trees. We're losing too many trees. Very true. If you go down to Brazil and they're burning up forests left and right to harvest cattle and to grow soybeans. And that is bad, bad, bad. And you have illegal harvesting in Russia and the East and some areas and that are all bad, bad, bad. But in the United States, especially in Appalachian forest, it's a working forest. It's being harvested in a sustainable manner. It's growing. Today, our forests are larger and more dense than they were 30, 60, 100 years ago back. You have to go back to 1907, the time we actually had more trees in the Appalachian forest than we have today. So that's an area of collaboration that's important to me and an area that I worry about. The long-time strength of that business. It'll come back a little bit, but we lost so much giving up manufacturing, value-add manufacturing in China. It's hard to get it back. And it goes all the way back to our supply chain.
Glad you touched on the kind of logging and harvesting of hardwood in the Appalachian area. I've heard about the need for harvesting woods. They don't grow too densely, so I appreciate that you shared about that. I've got one final one.
I'm gonna give you one more just on top of that line. It's relevant today with all the flooding in Western Carolina. And the flooding, that was hurricane and storm of the century kind of a thing. A lesser known history in terms of trees in West Virginia and Appalachia. Appalachian sustainability really started up in New York and Adirondacks up there. But essentially, when they started with the national forest back in the early years, why they decided to have national forest? Because basically here in West Virginia, the center of Appalachia, they cut down all the trees. What happens when you cut down all the trees? Baltimore and Washington, D.C. flood. And they had a number of years where a lot of the urban cities and the coastal cities all flooded because upstate New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia were clear cut. They started the national forest system, not because they wanted more trees, but because they wanted less flooding. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but there's some real truth to that in terms of the forest system. And it is pretty amazing the impact that trees and sustainably growing forests have. It's more than just shade and a place for people, for animals and people to live. It actually keeps the cities and the downstream areas safe.
Well, there you go. I'm almost as a Lorax-esque kind of spokesperson. Take it where you can get it. Kind of appreciative to hear that there's any kind of factor that pushes legislation and that kind of sustainable in a more macroscopic way, like the world sustainability, like having forests that are spread about and not just clear cut. That's interesting to hear about it's the flooding. And that's is that just water absorption, or is that just like the physical, like tree being in the way of the watershed going down?
Yeah, water absorption and soil integrity. You keep the soil in place. The soil does a better job of absorbing, and the trees obviously, suck up a lot of the water and put it back in the atmosphere as part of their growth. It's all the above. It's pretty surprising, pretty amazing.
I don't know if fun fact if folks will know or not, but the Blue Ridge part of the Appalachian Mountains, why they're called the Blue is I don't remember the exact kind of gas it is, but the trees are putting off a gas that are skewing the light to give it that kind of blue hue.
Oxygen. They carbon dioxide, turn it into oxygen, and you look at it to the right. It is pretty amazing. You go to Appalachian, the areas that they call Blue Ridge. It's most obvious. You look down there, especially at the end of the day, and it's got a blue halo. It's very real, and oxygen. Thank goodness.
So I'm glad to know that it was such a core.
Very special gas.
It is. And on a closing question I've got for you, I'm curious, what excites you most about the future of Gat Creek and the U.S. furniture industry as a whole?
I am legitimately excited that the consumers care, starting to care more and more. More and more consumers are caring not just about what they buy, but how it's made, who makes it, and what goes into it. There's integrity has returned to the consumer, and a lot more and more consumers are realizing that they have a much greater impact than they would have ever assumed. You spend a lot of money as a consumer, especially on home furnishings, and you can have a much greater impact than people really notice if you care about what you're buying, how it's made, who it comes from. That stuff actually triples, multiplies, and has an impact. And I see that happening more and more. It's not just furniture, but furniture's a nice, big, obvious one to talk about.
Yeah, it is a staple of the home, and it's about worn down. I had a T-shirt that the way I thought about it, the T-shirt read "Vote every day," and I imagine that as like voting with your dollar, choosing what products you're supporting, and all the processes that go into those creations, and things seen and unseen, like the actual materials that are being used and where they're coming from, but all the manufacturing process. If you're supporting people or machines, all the various components of it. So. Well, I'd like to say thank you again for sharing your journey with us, for being here on the episode today. I'm looking forward to seeing how Gat Creek continues to grow and lead in sustainable craftsmanship.
Right on. Yeah, I love the close there. Vote every day. That's fantastic, and it's nice. And this is nice. Stuff like this is how you help get the word out. Consumers are interested in learning too, and that's the more the easier it is to make good choices and have impact in what you do every day.
Yeah, continue the conversations, allow it to be part of the more kind of day-to-day, not so much of a fringe happening as sustainability. And the way I think of this kind of style of conversation is really just like what makes a world that we want to live in, like where are the areas that are faltering, that aren't providing for both the planet and ourselves as people. So lots of room for improvement. Definitely happy to play my part in helping to continue conversations and share that. And again, it only happens with people like you doing what it is that you're doing, being able to highlight and showcase what it is that you're up to.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's more than just me, jeez. But it is great. Good to have a chance to kind of talk about all this with you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.